There is no grave for Veah Harris, no obituary, no confirmed birthday. Not because she was never loved, but because her own parents dissolved her body with chemicals and poured her remains into a reservoir. This is the story of the little girl in pink Minnie Mouse pajamas who was never really missing at all. There are cases where we know exactly who someone was. We know their birthday, the hospital where they were born, what their teachers said about them, what they liked to do on the playground. This is not one of those cases. Veah Harris was 4 years old. That is what we know for certain. She lived in Aiken, South Carolina. She weighed about 40 pounds and stood 3 feet 6 inches tall. She loved Minnie Mouse. She was last seen with braids and pink beads in her hair. She loved the color pink. No confirmed birth date appears in any public record. There is no obituary. There is no grave to visit. And there is a reason for that last part, one that we will get to, one that will stay with you. The absence of these basic records tells us something about how this child existed in the world. She was not fully documented, not fully seen, not fully protected. That would become clear as her story unfolded. Veah's mother was 22-year-old Michelle Herring. Her father was 23-year-old Jamaria Harris. The couple lived together at 39 Hillsborough Street in Aiken. Michelle worked for a company called Transcom. Jamaria worked for DHL Bridgestone. Records show the couple had been moving around for years. Jamaria had been named in an eviction case in Union County settled in November of 2023. Michelle's name appeared in a separate eviction case filed by the Union Housing Authority in December of 2025, ending with a judge ordering her out. From Union County, both ended up in Aiken. No prior criminal records for either parent have been released. No prior Child Protective Services contact has been confirmed on the record. What the public record does show is that their relationship was volatile in the months leading up to these events, and it was getting worse. 2 domestic incidents occurred during that period. The first was from November of 2025 in Clinton, South Carolina. Michelle called police on Jamaria because she said he was trying to leave their home. Officers responded to what they described as a dispute over moving a table. The couple agreed to stay separate for the rest of the day. The second report was from the Aiken County Sheriff's Office on March 16th of 2026. This time, the argument turned physical. Jamaria allegedly tried to force Michelle out of the car so he could use it. She did not want to press charges, but she asked him to leave. According to the report, the argument started over a hot dog. Neither report mentions Veah. The pattern of instability was there, documented by law enforcement, but the child at the center of their lives remained invisible in the official records of their conflicts. Veah had her own story in the neighborhood. Some of what former neighbors have said is difficult to hear, knowing what we know now. In Union County, where the family lived before moving to Aiken, their neighbor, known only as Miss Young, told reporters that people on the street had been quietly watching out for the little girl for a long time. She said, and I quote, "They fed her, bathed her, and gave her new clothes and sent her back home. It wasn't just me. People in that neighborhood noticed the exact same thing. The neighbors saw what the system did not. They stepped in when they could. They provided food, clothing, and care, but they could not keep her safe permanently." By the time June of 2026 arrived, Michelle was 39 weeks pregnant with another child. A new baby was coming into a household that was already failing the child who lived there. On the evening of June 30th, 2026, Michelle picked up the phone and called 911. The call came in just before 9 o'clock. She told the dispatcher her 4-year-old daughter was missing. She said the child had been outside playing, and when she went to get her, she could not find her anywhere. She described pink Minnie Mouse pajamas, braided hair with pink beads, and said the child was mixed race. She claimed she had only been inside for 20 to 30 minutes. She mentioned that her daughter was possibly autistic, but had no official diagnosis. She told the dispatcher the neighbors were drug users and that she did not associate with them. She said there were wolves eating cows behind the house. The call was filled with details designed to paint a picture of a sudden, frightening disappearance. But behind the words, something was missing. The call was a performance, and the performance was about to be exposed. The description Michelle gave on that 911 call became the face of the search. That image circulated across social media platforms, every local news broadcast, and digital billboards across Aiken County. People shared it by the thousands. In retrospect, it was the image of a little girl who had already been gone for weeks. The moment that call came in, law enforcement mobilized. What followed was one of the largest missing child searches South Carolina had seen in years. At its peak, more than 200 law enforcement officers and first responders were working the case. This included the FBI, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Helicopters flew grid patterns. Drones swept the terrain. Canine units worked the woods and fields. Deputies stopped every vehicle passing through the area for questioning. Door-to-door canvassing covered the surrounding neighborhoods. By July 2nd, crews had covered more than 3,000 acres. On July 4th, Sheriff Marty Sawyer stood before cameras and said the words the community had feared. The investigation and evidence led them to believe Veah was deceased. At the moment, Michelle was on the phone, describing the chicken coop and the bathwater. Veah had been gone for weeks. Every helicopter pass, every canine sweep, every deputy questioning drivers in 100-degree heat, all of that had been looking for a child who was already at the bottom of a reservoir in Fairfield County. According to arrest warrants, the events began on or about June 5th. Veah suffered a head injury at the hands of her mother. Neither parent sought medical attention, not that day and not in the days that followed. She died as a result of that injury and the decision not to treat it. Her body remained in the home at 39 Hillsborough Street for weeks while her parents went about their lives. On June 8th, 3 days after investigators believed she died, Jamaria Harris and Michelle Herring did something that Sheriff Sawyer would later describe as the most horrific thing he'd encountered in nearly 4 decades in law enforcement. They dissolved her body with chemicals. After the chemical destruction at the home, the parents transported what remained of Veah to Cedar Creek Reservoir in Fairfield County, also known locally as Stumpy Pond, approximately 100 miles from Aiken. They poured her remains into the water. On July 9th, the sheriff confirmed that human remains had been recovered. DNA analysis confirmed they were the biological offspring of Jamaria and Michelle. The sheriff also revealed that corrosive chemicals had been used to accelerate the destruction of her body. The parents went through great lengths to cover their actions. The sheriff stated it was unlikely any more remains would ever be recovered. In the aftermath, the community of Aiken responded with overwhelming love. A memorial of pink stuffed animals and balloons grew outside the family home. Vigils were held across multiple cities and counties. Hundreds attended each one. The grandfather of Veah told a crowd he did not raise his family this way. Vigil organizers urged people to report suspected child abuse. They called for better programs and more assistance for overwhelmed child protection agencies. The message was clear. Children who are not visible in school, daycare, or the broader community are the ones most likely to go unnoticed. The community made sure Veah would not be forgotten. They gave her what her parents took away. They gave her a legacy. "The small coffins are the heaviest," one man said. The words captured the weight of a life that ended before it truly began. A petition circulated calling for a new federal law titled Veah's Law. The petition argues that current federal law imposes strict penalties for bomb threats and terrorist hoaxes, but does not automatically require those same penalties for someone who fabricates a child's disappearance to conceal a crime. It calls for a mandatory federal felony charge, guaranteed financial restitution for all taxpayer money spent on the search response, and mandatory parenting and child development classes for any expectant or new parent age 25 or younger. Meanwhile, the newborn baby's sister, born the same night Michelle made the 911 call, was placed with the paternal grandmother. There is no grave for Veah Harris. What her parents took from her was not only her life, they took away the possibility of a proper goodbye. They took away the chance for anyone who loved her to have a place to go and sit with her. The community gave back everything it could.